The night opens on downtown Chicago, drenched in rain, streets glistening under streetlights that flicker against puddles. From the open doors of a luxury hotel ballroom, music, laughter, and champagne-fueled celebration spill into the night. But for Claire, time has collapsed into something else entirely. Just moments ago, her eyes fell upon a scene that rewired her heartbeat, her fiancé's Mark in the arms of her best friend. Not a friendly embrace, not something that could be explained away, but an intimacy so sharp and undeniable that it pierced straight through her chest. Yet Claire does not scream, does not throw a glass, does not make the grand cinematic scene that others might imagine. Instead, she goes quiet pain hollowing her chest, silence screaming louder than any accusation could. The weight of betrayal steals her voice, her strength, her certainty. As the rain pours, mixing with the tears she refuses to let fall inside that ballroom, Claire walks out into the storm. Her dress clings to her, shoes sinking slightly into wet pavement, but she doesn't care. The whole world feels blurred, as if the rain has become a veil she can hide beneath. She doesn't know where she's going, only that she can't breathe inside those walls anymore. In this quiet devastation, we feel the gravity of her collapse. A life meticulously built with love, trust, and future plans, now shattered in a single image she'll never forget. The audience is immediately hooked, drawn into the rawness of heartbreak not by noise, but by the profound emptiness Claire carries into the night. Not far from the entrance, under the muted glow of a flickering street lamp, Ethan leans against the wall with a cigarette that burns slower than his racing thoughts. Once a paramedic, once a man who ran headlong into burning cars and broken homes to drag strangers back from the brink, now he's just a bar manager who pretends he's fine. His hands shake when he lights up, not from the cold rain, but from memories he can't silence. Memories of the night everything broke. A failed rescue. A child he couldn't save. The echo of a mother's scream haunts him still, each sound replaying in his head when the world goes quiet. The rain comforts him in a strange way, disguising the sweat of panic, drowning out the noise in his mind. Quitting paramedicine wasn't a choice. It was survival. Yet standing here outside a wedding venue, of all places, Ethan feels even more like an outsider. The music and joy inside only remind him of everything he's lost, his purpose, his courage, his ability to trust himself. He takes another drag, wishing the nicotine could smooth the jagged edges of his mind. He doesn't know why he's even here, maybe habit, maybe an odd favor to a friend, maybe simply because he couldn't bear to sit in silence at home tonight. And so he lingers in the rain, in the shadows, hiding in plain sight. What makes Ethan compelling is that he's not the polished romantic hero we expect. He's fractured, bruised by invisible wounds, a man who walked away from saving lives because one loss crushed him more than all the rescues could heal. Tonight, unknowingly, his brokenness is about to collide with another's. Claire's heels skid against the slick pavement, her body threatening to collapse under the weight of betrayal and the rain-soaked night. Just as she falters, Ethan's hand shoots out instinctively, steadying her with a grip that is firm yet gentle, the reflex of someone who once saved people without hesitation. For a moment, they both freeze, caught in an unspoken recognition of pain. Her eyes are glassy, lost, searching for ground. His eyes are tired, shadowed by ghosts. They don't know each other, and yet, in this accidental meeting, it feels as if the storm has conspired to place them side by side. "You okay?" Ethan asks, his voice low, carrying the sincerity of someone who has asked that question 1,000 times in moments far worse than this. Claire doesn't answer right away, words feel foreign in her mouth, but eventually, she exhales a shaky laugh, one that isn't joy but disbelief. "Not even close," she admits. And Ethan nods, almost relieved by her honesty, because he too has lived in that space where okay is impossible. Their exchange is brief, raw, stripped of pretenses. No introductions, no forced politeness, just two strangers standing in the rain with their wounds exposed. In that silence, something fragile takes root, not attraction, not yet, but recognition. The audience feels it. Two broken souls, each walking through different storms, colliding at the precise moment when they both needed someone who could understand without explanation. It's not grand, not romanticized. It's messy, imperfect, human. And it hooks us completely because this isn't just a love story. It's the story of how two damaged people might begin, tentatively to help one another breathe again. Claire grew up in a household where love was conditional, measured not by warmth but by performance. Her mother, elegant but unyielding, drilled into her that perfection was not a goal but a necessity. Every piano recital, every report card, every neatly arranged art project was met not with unconditional pride, but with critiques designed to keep her striving. The message was clear. Love was something earned, not freely given. This ingrained belief followed Claire into adulthood, shaping her choices in men, in career, and how she carried herself. When Mark entered her life, a man polished, ambitious, and effortlessly charming, he seemed like the embodiment of everything she had been trained to value. He was the safe choice, the kind of man her mother would approve of, the kind her friends envied, the kind who checked every box. At first, he played the part of the supportive partner, lifting her up and promising her stability. But behind closed doors, the mask slipped. Mark's support curdled into criticism, his charm sharpened into control. He disguised manipulation as love dictating what she wore, how she presented herself, and even how much she worked. Claire, conditioned to mistake control for care, ignored the warning signs, telling herself this was what love looked like. Now, standing on the other side of betrayal, she carries not just heartbreak, but humiliation. The shame eats at her more than the betrayal itself, the shame of knowing she chose him, of knowing her family, especially her mother, will shake their heads and mutter, "I told you so." What devastates her most is not losing Mark, but the dawning realization that she has been living someone else's definition of love and success. For the first time, she is confronted with the terrifying question, what does she want when no one else's approval is at stake? Ethan's story unfolds on the opposite end of love and expectation, though its roots are just as suffocating. Once a decorated paramedic, he thrived in chaos, the kind of man who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. His colleagues admired his steady hands, his instinct to comfort as well as save, his uncheckable presence in the face of blood and fire. But all of that shattered one night in a burning apartment building when a young girl slipped through his grasp. He replayed the moment endlessly, the smoke, the screams, the heat pressing in as he dragged bodies out one by one. And then the moment his strength failed, when his timing faltered, when he stumbled out with empty arms, and the sound of a mother's grief seared itself into his memory. Official reports cleared him. No one could have done more. But in his own mind, he became the man who failed. The man who let a child die. From that day forward, his badge felt like a lie. Quitting the job wasn't a decision. It was the only way he could breathe without drowning in guilt. Yet walking away carried its own punishment. His father, a proud ex-cop who equated duty with manhood, now sees him as a coward, a son who tarnished the family name by abandoning his post. Family gatherings became unbearable, each sideways glance a reminder of what he lost, not just a child, but his own father's respect. So Ethan drifts through nights managing a bar, numbing himself with long shifts, casual hookups, and whiskey strong enough to quiet the echoes of failure. The man who once gave his life to saving others now struggles to save himself, hiding behind smoke, neon lights, and a bravado that fools no one, not even him. What makes their worlds compelling is not just their pain, but how eerily they mirror each other. Claire and Ethan move through life as if half alive, both trapped in silence of their own making. She avoids mirrors because she's afraid to see the reflection of someone weak enough to mistake control for love. He avoids mirrors because he doesn't recognize the man staring back, a man who once saved lives but now can barely hold his own together. Both live under the shadow of judgment, hers from a mother who weaponized perfection, his from a father who weaponized duty. Both drown themselves in distractions, Claire in overwork and pretending everything is fine. Ethan in late nights and meaningless encounters that dull connection instead of feeding it. Yet beneath their self-destructive coping, they share the same aching truth. They are at war with themselves. Neither betrayal nor failure defines them entirely, but both have internalized those wounds as identity, as if brokenness is all they have to offer the world. And this is where their stories bend toward each other, because in that collision outside the wedding, two silences met. Two people who avoid being seen were suddenly forced to see one another, stripped of masks, drenched in rain, unguarded. For the first time in a long time, they weren't alone in their private storms. That recognition, the quiet, almost imperceptible moment of shared brokenness, isn't just about survival. It's about the possibility of something greater, that two fractured lives might not only parallel, but intertwine, creating a fragile new language of healing neither could write alone. This parallel is the heartbeat of their story, two broken souls, learning that sometimes the only way to rebuild is not in solitude, but in the presence of someone who knows exactly how it feels to fall apart. Weeks slip by after the fracture, filled with silence and self-inflicted isolation. Claire spends her days dragging herself through the motions of graphic design projects, but at night, the loneliness presses too close, the walls of her apartment suffocating. One rainy Thursday, she steps into a dimly lit bar tucked between two shuttered storefronts, not realizing it's Ethan's. She isn't looking for noise, for people, or for alcohol. She's looking for a corner where she can disappear. With her sketchbook tucked under her arm, she finds a booth in the back. The glow of her pencil, the only anchor to a world she feels slipping from her grasp. The bar hums softly with the clink of glasses, murmured conversations, and a jukebox crooning old songs that sound like memories. She orders water, nothing more. She hasn't eaten properly and day's food feels heavy, unwelcome, but she tells herself maybe drawing will help. Her lines come out shaky, her sketches fractured, as if her own hands have forgotten how to create beauty. What she doesn't realize is that she has wandered back into Ethan's orbit. From behind the counter, he spots her instantly, her posture, her damp hair, the haunted look in her eyes. It jolts something in him, a recognition of fragility he has carried himself. For weeks he has tried to forget their connection, tried to bury the guilt of pushing her away. And yet here she is, sitting in his bar like fate decided to circle back. His pulse quickens not from attraction, but from the uncanny sense that life is offering him a second chance to make a different choice. Ethan wipes his hands on a bar towel, hesitant, then pours a glass of ginger ale and walks it over. He places it gently on her table with the simple words, "On the house." Claire looks up, startled, recognition flickering across her face. The silence that stretches between them is taut, fragile, but not hostile. Slowly, she closes her sketchbook, ashamed of the messy scribbles inside, as if they betray her state of mind. "Haven't seen you around," Ethan says carefully, his voice softer than usual, as though afraid of scaring her away. Claire almost laughs, a bitter sound, before murmuring, "Haven't seen myself around either." It's not the kind of line she planned to say, but exhaustion strips her of filters. Something about his presence makes her unspool. She admits in halting fragments that she hasn't been able to eat properly in days, that food tastes like ash, that her body feels like a stranger she's dragging around. Ethan listens, his jaw tightening, not with judgment, but with recognition. In return, he confesses something he rarely lets slip, that he hasn't slept properly in years. Not since the fire, not since the girl he couldn't save. Nights are long, haunted, and even exhaustion feels like punishment rather than rest. The honesty between them is hesitant, as if testing whether the air can carry such fragile truths without shattering. Yet it holds. For a brief moment, the bar around them dissolves, and it's just two people admitting they're not okay in a world that demands otherwise. It isn't romantic, it isn't dramatic, it's raw, disarming, and utterly real. The moment deepens when Claire's phone vibrates against the table, her mother's name flashing across the screen. Against her better judgment, she answers, only to be assaulted by a familiar wave of cold, clipped disapproval. Her mother's voice, sharp as ever, insists that she forgive Mark for appearances, for family reputation, for stability. No one needs to know the details. Just move on, Claire. Don't embarrass us further. The words choke her, pressing against the raw wounds of betrayal and shame. For the first time, she cannot hold back. Her composure cracks, and she breaks down right there in the booth. Shoulders shaking, tears slipping through the dam she has held for weeks. Ethan, watching from across the table, recognizes the suffocating weight of guilt when it coils around a person's chest. He doesn't try to fix it, doesn't offer hollow advice, he simply sits with her. Hours pass, the bar empties, and still he stays, silent but steady, as if his very presence is a protest against the loneliness consuming her. When the lights dim near closing, neither wants the night to end. They make a quiet pact, born not of romance but survival. Once a week, they will meet here, in this space, to trade truths. No judgment, no pretending. Just raw honesty, the kind the world outside punishes. It is not a grand decision, not sealed with promises or dramatic gestures. It's fragile, almost tentative. But in its simplicity lies something profound, the beginning of a bond forged not in love, but in the willingness to sit with one another in their darkest nights. It is the first true step toward healing. Even if neither of them dares to name it yet, what begins as accidental encounters soon evolves into something Claire and Ethan both cling to without realizing it, a fragile, unspoken bond. Their weekly meetings, at first casual coffee runs, short walks, moments stolen after her design shifts or his late-night bar closing gradually become a lifeline. Claire, who has spent her life constructing a facade of competence and control, finds herself saying things to Ethan she has never admitted aloud. One rainy evening over cheap diner fries, she whispers the words that shame her most, that without Mark, she feels worthless, invisible, as if she only existed when reflected through someone else's approval. The confession trembles from her lips, half expecting him to laugh or dismiss it. Instead, Ethan looks at her with an understanding that cuts deeper than pity, because he knows that feeling. When his turn comes, he admits what he has never told his drinking buddies. His flings, not even his family, that without his badge. Without the sirens and rescues, he feels hollow like a fraud pretending at life. The uniform made me someone, he murmurs, staring at his untouched drink. Their vulnerabilities, fragile as porcelain, start to weave threads of connection between them. It is not romance, yet it is survival. Two broken souls offering each other space to breathe. For the first time in months, Claire begins to imagine that healing might be possible outside of Mark's shadow. And for the first time since the fire, Ethan dares to believe he is more than the sum of his worst mistake. But like all fragile things, this bond is delicate, always at risk of shattering under the weight of the past pressing in. The bond they are building is soon tested when the ghosts of their past lives refuse to stay buried. For Claire, the torment comes in the form of Mark, who refuses to accept the humiliation of her leaving. His texts start innocuous apologies, promises to change, but quickly curdle into harassment. He corners her outside her workplace, his charm dripping with menace, hissing that she must come back, not for love, but for appearances. You don't want everyone to know you couldn't keep me, do you? He sneers, weaponizing her deepest fear, humiliation, failure in her family's eyes. Every message, every encounter drags her back toward the cage she is fighting to escape. Meanwhile, Ethan faces a ghost of his own, his father. One night, the bar is quiet, neon lights humming low, when the man storms in, eyes filled with judgment heavier than any drunk's slurred insults. His father's voice cuts through the haze of stale beer. You threw away your calling. You let that girl die, and instead of redeeming yourself, you ran. The accusation slices open wounds Ethan works so hard to numb. All the walls he built work, whiskey, women collapse under the weight of paternal disappointment. Now both Claire and Ethan are being dragged back into their old narratives, hers of worth tied to a man's approval, his of manhood tied to a uniform. Their weekly sanctuary begins to crack, not because they fail each other, but because the outside world refuses to let them go free. Both must now face not just each other's pain, but their own demons clawing at the door, demanding to be let back in. The breaking point comes quietly, almost too human to feel like a dramatic explosion, yet it cuts more deeply than either expected. One evening, after a particularly raw conversation, Claire gently suggests what seems obvious to her, that perhaps Ethan should consider returning to paramedic work to reclaim the part of himself he has lost. Her tone is soft, almost pleading, born not of judgment, but of hope. But to Ethan, her words echo with his father's voice, the same accusations that haunt him: coward, quitter, disgrace. The suggestion lands not as encouragement, but as betrayal. His temper flares, the veneer of calm shattering. Don't you dare sound like him, he spits, his voice sharp, eyes burning with the kind of anger that isn't about her at all, but about the ghosts she accidentally awakened. Claire freezes, stunned by the venom in his tone. For someone who has spent her whole life being belittled by men who claim to know what was best for her, this moment feels like history repeating itself. The fragile bond they had been building fractures. Her chest tightens, shame and hurt rising like bile. Without a word, she grabs her coat and storms out into the night, rain washing over her again, a cruel reminder of the first night they met. For Ethan, the silence after her departure is deafening. He knows he has driven away the one person who understood him without judgment. But shame, pride, and fear weld his feet to the ground, stopping him from chasing her. For Claire, leaving feels like survival, but it also feels like abandonment all over again, proof that even when she dares to open her heart, it is destined to be broken. The gallery hums with anticipation, filled with the soft clinking of glasses and the murmur of critics and patrons circling Claire's work. For weeks, she poured herself into the showcase sketches and canvases that carry her bruised heart, fragments of a woman rediscovering her own voice through art. Tonight was meant to be her rebirth. But the air fractures when Mark storms in, his presence commanding and poisonous all at once. His voice cuts through the crowd like glass shattering. This is what you left me for? Scribbles? Pity art? He sneers loudly enough for the entire room to hear, humiliation dripping from every word. Claire freezes, her hands trembling, heart hammering. The old wound rips open, the years of shrinking herself, of swallowing her protests, of letting others dictate her worth. The room spins, faces blurring as shame coils around her throat, silencing her once again. From the back, Ethan steps forward. He had come quietly, only to support her from the shadows, but now he cannot stay still. Yet instead of charging at Mark or throwing a punch, Ethan looks at Claire, his voice steady, firm, and piercing. You don't need me to fight him. Say it yourself. the words land like an anchor, grounding her. For the first time, she realizes she doesn't have to be rescued, she has to rise. With trembling breath, she lifts her chin, her voice clear despite the tears threatening. "We're done, Mark. The engagement is over. You don't own me, not anymore." The room stills, then fills with quiet applause, not for drama, but for courage. Claire reclaims herself in front of the very people she once feared would judge her. And in that moment, she feels not small, but infinite. Days later, Ethan faces his own reckoning. The bar is crowded, the air thick with laughter, neon lights buzzing overhead, when a sudden crash silences the room. A man lies on the floor, gasping for breath, panic sweeping the patrons. For a split second, Ethan freezes, the fire flashes back, the girl's face, the weight of failure. His chest tightens, sweat beats his brow, the old voice whispering, "You can't do this. You failed before. You'll fail again." But instinct, buried deep beneath guilt, ignites. Ethan drops to his knees, hands steady as if they never forgot. He checks vitals, clears airways, applies compressions with precision, barking calm instructions to the crowd. The rhythm of saving takes over, muscle memory overpowering fear. Within moments that feel like hours, the man coughs, color returning to his face, life clawing its way back. Relief floods the room, cheers erupt, but Ethan barely hears them. He sits back, breathless, staring at his own hands. The same hands he once condemned now remind him of the truth. His past didn't break him, it sharpened him. The fire, the loss, the guilt, they carved scars, yes, but they also carved strength. For the first time since that night, he does not feel like a coward. He feels like the man who can. Later, as the paramedics wheel the man away, one of them clasps Ethan's shoulder. "You never lose it," he says simply. And Ethan realizes it's true. He never lost it, he only lost faith in himself. When Claire and Ethan meet again, it isn't under the haze of drinks or in the middle of heartbreak. It's in quiet clarity. Both carry victories of their own. Claire stood up to Mark, reclaiming her voice, while Ethan rediscovered his strength, proving to himself he is still capable. The air between them hums with possibility, but not the kind of storybook romance that demands immediate surrender. Instead, they make a different choice, one far braver than falling headfirst into love. They choose themselves first. Claire admits she still has rebuilding to do, wounds to tend, dreams to rediscover without leaning on someone else to define her worth. Ethan acknowledges that while he is stronger, he is not yet whole. He must walk into his past with courage before he can step fully into his future. And yet, this decision does not pull them apart, it brings them side by side. Healing, they realize, isn't about leaning on someone forever. It's about learning to stand, then choosing to walk together. Their bond is no less powerful because it isn't romantic, it's deeper, rooted in mutual survival, respect, and growth. The final image is not a kiss or a dramatic embrace, but two broken souls walking out of the bar together into the night, shoulders brushing, the storm behind them. Not complete, not perfect, but moving forward. And for them, for now, that is enough. The first morning in her new apartment feels nothing like the glossy magazine spreads she once dreamed of. It's small. The paint is chipped and the plumbing rattles. But it is hers. For Claire, that ownership carries more freedom than the grandest penthouse Mark ever promised. Sunlight filters through cheap blinds as she sets up her easel in the corner of the living room, canvas propped against peeling walls. She dips her brush in color, her hand trembling not with fear but with anticipation. Every stroke is a declaration. She is no longer painting to please anyone, not Mark, not her mother, not the critics. This exhibit will be hers alone, raw and unfiltered, a reflection of her voice reclaimed. The night of her first independent showcase, she arrives in a simple black dress. No fiance on her arm, no approval-seeking smile on her face. Her mother hovers, offering clipped remarks about how bold the work is. But Claire only smiles faintly, letting the barbs fall where they may. For the first time, she does not bend to family judgment. As guests pause before her paintings, some confused, some moved, Claire realizes the value of her art is not in universal approval, but in the truth it holds. Standing before her own canvas, she breathes deeply, proud. She has stopped asking permission to exist. Ethan's path forward doesn't take him back into the ambulance, and for the first time, he is okay with that. Instead, he chooses a smaller but no less meaningful step, volunteering at a local community clinic a few nights a week. Here, there are no flashing sirens, no impossible rescues measured against time. Instead, there are quiet conversations, bandage scrapes, and the steady reassurance he once thought he'd lost the right to give. Each patient he helps reminds him that his hands were never the enemy, they were always meant to heal. What's different now is that he chooses when, how, and why. His service is no longer about proving himself to his father or to the world, but about answering the call in a way that doesn't consume him. One evening, his younger sister stops by the bar, nervous but determined. She admits she was afraid of him drifting away, afraid that their father's disappointment had cut too deeply. Ethan doesn't defend himself this time. Instead, he listens, then tells her the truth. Choosing a different path doesn't mean he failed. It means he survived. For the first time, he feels the weight of his father's shadow lift, replaced by a bond he can rebuild on his own terms. And as he walks her to her car, her arm linked with his, Ethan realizes that healing isn't about returning to who he was. It's about embracing who he's become. Though their lives no longer orbit around crisis, Claire and Ethan continue to meet, but now their weekly encounters feel lighter. The bar booth that once held their confessions now holds laughter, updates, and quiet celebrations of progress. Claire brings sketches from her latest series, not to ask for validation, but to share the joy of creation. Ethan talks about the kids at the clinic, the ones who make him laugh with wild stories or test his patience with stubbornness, and Claire listens with genuine warmth. They are no longer leaning on each other to survive. They are walking side by side, each carrying their own strength. Sometimes their meetings are silent, spent simply existing in the same space, her drawing, him reading, the comfort of presence enough. Other times they toast small victories, Claire ignoring her mother's barbed comments without flinching, Ethan handling a medical scare without panic. There is no urgency between them, no desperation to define what they are. Instead, there is choice, a deliberate decision to remain in each other's lives, not out of need, but out of respect and affection. The story doesn't end with a kiss or a tidy resolution, but with something deeper. Two people who faced their storms, stood their ground, and emerged stronger. Together, they step into the future not as halves trying to complete one another, but as whole individuals choosing to walk forward side by side. Months have passed, and the air of the gallery hums with low conversation and the shuffle of footsteps on polished floors. Claire stands near the front, her hair pinned loosely, her dress simple but elegant. This is her night, not Mark's, not her mother's, not anyone else's, and she feels both exposed and unshakably free. For the first time, her art is not hidden in sketchbooks or dismissed as a hobby, but displayed on clean white walls under careful lighting. The pieces whisper her journey, colors of grief, jagged lines of betrayal, softer tones of recovery. Though guests drift in and out with polite murmurs, Claire's attention catches on one figure near the back. Ethan leans against the wall, half-shadowed, not making a spectacle of himself, but clapping the loudest whenever someone pauses to recognize her work. His presence is quiet yet grounding, an anchor in the room's noise. Claire feels the sting of tears not from sadness, but from recognition. This is not about being rescued. It never was. It's about standing in her own light with someone who sees her without trying to define her. When the moment comes to unveil the centerpiece, Claire takes a steady breath. The cloth slips away, revealing her final painting, Two Bridges. Gasps ripple softly through the audience. The canvas shows two fractured wooden planks stretched over a turbulent river, broken in places yet leaning toward each other, meeting in the middle, not whole, but connected. For Claire, it is more than art, it is confession. It is reclamation. The room is quiet, people staring not just at the painting, but at the story behind it. Some see resilience, others see love, others see loss. For Claire, it is simply truth. Healing is not about being flawless. It is about choosing to keep building, even when the pieces don't match. She speaks a few words about the title, her voice steady, and as she does, her eyes catch Ethan's. He doesn't smile or nod, he simply meets her gaze as if saying, "You've said enough. You finally said it for yourself." The showcase winds down, the crowd thinning, and Claire steps outside into the cool night. Her pulse is still racing from adrenaline, but the air tastes different, crisp, alive, filled with possibility. Ethan joins her, hands in his pockets, the silence between them unforced. They walk side by side down the quiet street, gallery lights fading behind them. Finally, he breaks the stillness with words that cut through the night, soft but certain. Turns out broken pieces don't always cut. Sometimes they fit. Claire turns her head, meeting his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she lets herself smile without hesitation. His words aren't about saving or fixing, but about acceptance, about the beauty and imperfection, the strength and scars. As they continue walking, their shadows stretch long against the pavement, neither one leading nor following. They are not perfect, not entirely healed, and not searching for a fairy tale ending. Instead, they are something rarer, two people who refuse to stay broken. The night air wraps around them, carrying faint echoes of laughter from a distant cafe, the hum of the city reminding them that life moves forward. Claire brushes a strand of hair from her face. Ethan kicks lightly at a loose stone. Small, ordinary gestures, but together they feel extraordinary. They don't hold hands, don't rush into promises, don't pretend the road ahead will be smooth. What they do is walk side by side, steady, unafraid. Not fixed, not flawless, but no longer alone. And in that simple act of moving forward, they write the quietest, most powerful ending of all.